Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be looking at something pretty exciting, at least for me,
Yeah.
um, narrative journalism, or sometimes called nonfiction writing.
Right.
Um, and this is kind of like, I guess the best way to think about it is
Yeah.
those stories that read like a novel, but they're all true.
Yeah.
So we're going to unlock how these writers take real life and make it
hmm
just as exciting as fiction.
Yeah. It's really about that blend of truth and storytelling.
hmm
So taking those factual events and weaving them into a narrative
Yeah.
that's both informative and engaging.
So how is that different than like a news article
Yeah.
or like a history book?
Well, I think it's a bridge between fact and art.
Yeah.
It's not just about reporting facts, but about crafting an experience.
Yeah.
For the reader, nonfiction writers are transporting you into a world.
Okay.
And they're doing that with details, characters, and this narrative arc.
So you're not just learning about something, you're like
Okay.
experiencing it through the writer's lens?
Exactly.
Okay.
And so to guide us on this journey, we're using Telling True Stories,
Okay.
edited by Mark Kramer and Wendy Call.
Okay.
And this book is this incredible compilation of insights from award-winning nonfiction writers, a lot of whom are associated with the Nieman Foundation at Harvard.
Oh, wow.
So really a who's who of the best in the business.
Wow. So this is like a master class
Yeah.
in storytelling
It is.
from those who have really done it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be uncovering, how they find inspiration, how they go about interviewing, the ethics of truth-telling, and so much more.
Okay. I'm excited.
So hopefully by the end, you'll have a deeper appreciation for nonfiction.
Yeah.
But maybe you'll be inspired to try your own hand at it.
Okay. So where did these amazing stories come from?
Yeah.
It's not like they can just make it up, right?
You can't make it up.
Is
It
that
has to be real. So it's about finding these true stories that are hidden all around us.
Right. Okay.
And this book highlights two main approaches. One is what I call diving into private lives.
Okay.
Writers like Gay Talese, author of Thy Neighbor's Wife,
Okay.
he believed by exploring the intimate details of individuals' lives, you uncover universal truths and societal trends.
So it's kind of like finding the extraordinary within the ordinary.
Exactly. Kind of like an anthropologist
Yeah.
studying a small tribe to understand human behavior.
Okay.
The other approach is what we call deep dive reporting.
Correct.
So writers like Ted Conover, who actually became a corrections officer at Sing Sing Prison to write New Jack,
Wow.
he immersed himself in the world he wanted to write about.
Talk about dedication.
Yeah, Conover's a big advocate for this participant-observer reporting.
Yeah.
Believing to truly understand a world,
Yeah.
you have to live it, even if that means going way outside your comfort zone.
I can only imagine how much more authentic and in-depth that writing would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So now one of the editors of Telling True Stories, Mark Kramer, he's distilled, years of experience into 10 practical tips. I won't have time to go through all of them.
Right.
But I do want to touch on a few that are particularly relevant.
Okay. Yeah. Give me those highlights.
Okay. One of the biggest things he stresses is choosing topics that resonate emotionally with the reader.
Okay.
He uses the example of a carjacking with a baby inside.
Oh my gosh.
Instantly, your attention is captured, right?
Yeah. You're like hooked.
He believes tapping into these human concerns makes even complex topics accessible.
Like sneaking in the vegetables with a delicious sauce.
Exactly.
Okay.
So another tip he emphasizes is securing access.
Okay.
He suggests finding a guide, someone who can open doors for you,
Yeah.
connect you with the right people, provide those insider perspectives.
So it's not just about the story idea.
Yeah,
It's about like navigating the world of that story.
precisely.
Okay.
You need someone who knows the landscape who can help you navigate the complexity.
Okay. That makes sense. What about once you have access and you're ready to report? Like, how do you approach that?
Well, Kramer highlights the importance of pinpointing the unfolding action,
Okay.
the narrative thread that's going to drive your story.
It's like finding the heartbeat of the story.
Exactly. You're observing how events play out in your subject's life.
Yeah.
And you're trying to identify that central thread that will pull the reader through.
Okay, cool. Anything else stand out to you from his tips?
Yeah. One more that's really crucial, especially for those new to nonfiction,
Okay.
is to focus on your subject's emotional experience,
Okay.
not your own.
Oh, that's tricky.
It is tricky.
How do you separate those two things?
He uses the example of surgeons.
Okay.
Imagine you're writing about surgeons operating on a patient.
Mm-hmm.
You might walk into that operating room and feel squeamish.
Yeah, for sure.
But the surgeon sees this clinically.
Right.
Your job as a writer is to capture their perspective.
So like empathy and journalistic objectivity all at the same time.
Exactly. And the last one I want to touch on is what he calls researching the shells of context.
Okay.
This is about understanding the social, economic, and political backdrops.
So not just the personal story, but like the bigger picture.
Right.
Okay.
Let's say you're writing about a family struggling to make ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
Their story becomes much more powerful when you understand the economic factors.
Right. So it's like those layers in a painting that give it depth and dimension.
Exactly.
Oh.
So now we've talked about finding the story,
Yeah.
but what about the actual writing process?
Yeah, like where do you begin with all that raw material?
Yeah, that's where the art comes in.
Oh, okay.
And that's what we'll talk about in our next deep dive.
Okay, I'm excited. Welcome back to our deep dive into nonfiction writing.
Yeah.
So last time we talked about how writers find those stories.
Right.
And all that research that goes into it.
Yeah, we were talking about immersing yourself in a world
Yeah.
like Ted Conover did and pinpointing the unfolding action like Mark Kramer talks about.
Right, it's about crafting that narrative.
Yeah.
But how do you take all those notes and interviews
Yeah.
and structure it all into a story?
Right.
I can only imagine how overwhelming it must be to start.
It can be a daunting task.
Ah.
Staring at pages and pages of notes.
Okay, so telling true stories
Mm-hmm.
gives us some guidance on how to craft that opening.
Right. So Deneen L. Brown, who is a feature writer for the Washington Post,
Okay.
he shares his approach to writing those really compelling first lines.
Okay, so tell me, what's the secret to a good opening?
Well, he starts by asking himself a series of questions.
Okay.
Like, what's the heart of the story?
Yeah.
What's the one thing I want the reader to take away?
Okay.
How can I spark their curiosity right from the beginning?
So kind of having a purpose, but also like a little bit of mystery.
Yeah, you want to draw them in and
Yeah.
make them want to keep reading.
Okay.
He sees the reading experience as a journey.
Yeah.
With the writer as the guide.
Okay.
And he compares it to like planning a trip,
Right.
mapping out a route.
Okay, so it's not just dumping information. It's like an experience.
Exactly.
Can you give an example?
Yeah. So he read a story about this 11-year-old girl
Yeah.
who had already planned her own funeral.
Wow, that's heavy.
Yeah. And his opening lines are so powerful. He says, Jessica Bradford knows 5 people who have been killed.
Oh, wow.
It could happen to her. She says so. She has told her family that if she should get shot before her 6th grade prom, she wants to be buried in her prom dress.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an incredible opening.
Yeah, you're immediately like, I need to know more about this girl.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's the magic of a good beginning.
Right.
It sets the tone, establishes the stakes, and compels the reader to keep going.
But how do you keep that momentum going?
Right. What about the rest of the story?
Yeah.
Well, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Thomas French
Okay.
has some interesting ideas about structuring a narrative.
Okay.
One is what he calls studying the natural sequence.
Okay, what does that even mean?
Yeah. So he believes that whether an action unfolds over minutes or days or even years,
Right.
there's a natural flow to events. Like,
Man.
think about Watergate.
Okay.
It started with a break-in.
Yeah.
And then eventually led to Nixon resigning.
Right.
That's a natural sequence.
So finding the order within the event.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes a chronological approach can be very powerful.
Like watching a movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, another key element is character development.
Yeah, we need those people to come to life on the page.
We do.
Okay.
So how do we do that?
Yeah.
Well, one way is to focus on those quirks and those little details that make each person unique.
Yeah, like that one thing you remember about a character.
Exactly.
Okay.
Could be the way they talk or dress.
Okay.
Some little detail that reveals their personality.
Like those brushstrokes in a painting.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, telling true stories also emphasizes the importance of revision,
Right.
cutting every unnecessary word, making each sentence count.
Be ruthless.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we can't forget about the responsibility
Oh, yeah.
that comes with reporting on real people and events.
We got to get the truth right.
Yes, we do.
Okay. What does the book say about that?
So the book outlines 2 principles
Okay.
for protecting the truth.
Okay.
The first is pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Do not add. Do not deceive.
So no embellishing, no making stuff up,
No, you can't make stuff up.
even if it makes a better story.
No.
Okay.
It's about respecting the integrity of events.
Right. So drawing that line between fact and fiction.
Exactly.
Okay. What's the second principle?
So the second principle is be unobtrusive.
Okay.
And this emphasizes the writer's role as an observer,
Okay.
not an influencer.
Okay.
You're there to record, not to shape the narrative.
So like minimize our impact on the story.
Exactly.
But what about anonymity? Like when do you use that?
Right.
And how do you do it ethically?
That's a good question.
Yeah, especially with sensitive topics.
Yeah.
You got to protect people. So how do you do that and still tell the truth?
Well, the book argues that anonymity itself doesn't violate the principles of nonfiction.
Okay.
It can be crucial to protect sources,
Yeah.
but you have to be transparent.
Okay.
If you're using a pseudonym, you got to be upfront about it.
Right. So be honest about what you can and cannot reveal.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, the book also talks about fact-checking.
Mm-hmm.
Often involves collaboration between writer and editor.
Right. So someone to double check everything.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Just make sure everything's accurate.
Okay. So we've talked about finding inspiration, interviewing, structuring the narrative,
Yeah.
all this stuff. But I'm still wondering, how do you actually end a nonfiction piece?
That's a great question.
Yeah, you can't just make up an ending.
No.
So what do you do?
That's what we're going to talk about in the last part.
Good.
How do you write an ending that resonates and stays true to the story?
I'm intrigued. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of nonfiction writing.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It has.
We started with finding that inspiration, talking about conducting interviews, structuring a narrative, and of course, the ethics of it all.
Absolutely a lot to think about.
Yeah, we've uncovered some amazing insights from these master storytellers.
We have.
All thanks to telling true stories.
Right.
But now we're at the final act.
Yeah, how do you end a nonfiction piece?
Yeah, how do you create an ending that really resonates with the reader?
Right. It's not like you can just tie everything up in a nice little bow.
No, you can't.
It's real life.
It is real life.
So what do you do?
Well, telling true stories suggests that a powerful nonfiction ending often circles back to the beginning.
Oh, okay.
It reminds the reader of those core themes or questions.
So it's kind of like bringing the reader full circle.
Exactly. It's about giving them perspective.
Yeah.
And letting them see the story in a new light.
Like you finally understand everything.
All right.
Okay.
Another technique is to end with a lingering question. Something that prompts the reader to keep thinking.
So not giving them all the answers.
No, making them think about the implications.
Okay.
And sometimes the most powerful endings just show the subject moving forward with their life.
That was a good point. Yeah.
Embracing the uncertainty of the future.
They're kind of beautiful.
Yeah,
Like a reminder that life goes on.
it does.
Okay, so no magic formula then.
No, there's not.
Okay.
The best approach will always depend on the specific story,
Mm-hmm.
the subject matter, the writer's voice.
You got to trust your gut.
You do.
Okay.
Ultimately, the ending should leave the reader feeling enriched, informed,
Yeah.
and maybe even changed.
I feel changed.
Good.
I'm inspired. I feel like I understand the power of nonfiction writing in a whole new way.
Yeah, it's about finding those hidden gems in everyday life and shaping them into narratives that educate and inspire.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. So to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to explore the world of nonfiction.
Yeah, pick up a copy of Telling True Stories.
Yeah.
Dive into those narratives and see what sparks your own creativity.
Yeah. Maybe you'll be inspired to tell your own story.
Maybe you will.
That's all for today's deep dive.
Until next time.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those amazing stories.